Well, I was going to introduce Ron Perlman over here to my right, but I guess you guys made a nice cheer for him to begin with. So we want to thank him for coming out here to StocktonCon. Of course, Sons of Anarchy. One of the reasons he is here this afternoon, and Ron, I want to thank.
They couldn't get anybody else. This fucking guy. I'm just gonna play to you all day, pal.
Hey, Ron, when you were doing Sons of Anarchy, did you research the role in regards to motorcycle clubs and the culture of motorcycle clubs and that sort of thing?
To a degree, I mean, luckily Kurt had done all that for us. You know, he actually went up north, kind of around here, to where the Hells Angels original chapter resided, and hung out with them for a couple of months and asked him a lot of questions and just, lived the life so he could absorb it all. And it was there were a lot of discussions with the cast about, our desire to kind of get it as authentic as possible, because usually the only thing you'd ever seen of the biker world were kind of like caricatures, what you would expect, big fat guys, with bad breath and shit. And, these guys were a society, they were, the thing that we were trying to get across about Sons was that they were a family, and there were a lot of families within the family, but there was one big overall family, kind of like, a sovereign nation, They had their own laws, they had their own, what was the fucking question? I can't remember.
What was
just going on and on and on and on.
What was just the culture of
Is there time to stop? How long have I been here?
About 90 seconds or so, Now, do you think that relationship of the way a motorcycle club had that family resulted in kind of how close the cast was of Sons of Anarchy?
Who said the cast was close?
I read something that said that. So.
You read that bullshit all the time. No, we didn't like each other at all. And it's gotten worse over the years. Brian was supposed to be here, but he won't sit next to me, and I won't sit next to him. Fuck him.
Let's talk a little bit about you growing up. I read
you're going to get any straight answers here, do you?
No, not at all. I already realized that, on the walk over, so. Now, let's talk a little bit about your father was a jazz drummer, and the close relationship you had with him. Was there a lot of music growing up in your family, in the household? What did you take from probably going to, the jazz clubs and how they perfected their craft?
We couldn't afford to leave the house, basically, but my dad, because we didn't have a lot of money and we couldn't go to clubs or shows or stuff, he brought as much of the culture home with him. Like, we had an amazing record collection, and my dad had tried being a jazz drummer during the days of the big bands, so Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller and the Dorsey Brothers and stuff. So he collected that music. I had an older brother who also became a jazz drummer, and he was his guys were like the bebop guys, like Miles and Dizzy Gillespie and Monk and Mingus and John Coltrane and all that. So, and then my dad kind of dug show music, so we always had the first day a Broadway show album would come out, we'd have that. So I was listening to like West Side Story and My Fair Lady and all of the Rodgers and Hammerstein stuff and Music Man. I just what's it called when you memorize? I memorized all these. I'm getting old, man. Either that or Stockton Air is like really. Yeah, right. Is there air here? And is there, if there is, where do I find some? But enough of me. How you guys doing? Alright, that'll be enough of that. Anyway, there was like, and then my dad's God was Sinatra, so the day a Sinatra album would come out, we'd have it. So we didn't have a lot of money, but he always had the money to get the records. And I didn't see my first show until I was like 19 years old, because we never had the money to go to a Broadway show. But I knew the words to all of them, and So yeah, music was a big deal in my background of my childhood.
Did you pick up any musical instruments or anything?
I picked them up, put them right back down. Which is why I became an actor. In order to be a musician, you have to have two things. You have to have discipline, and you have to have skill. And when I tried experimenting with learning musical instruments, I realized I needed to find an art form that required no discipline and no skill, so I became an actor.
And what were some of the...
You really can get away with shit when you're an actor. I have nothing going for me.
What were some of the early lessons you remember from being live on stage? I know you did Guys and Dolls back in college. What were some of the lessons of being live on stage that you can maybe bring to the fans here?
Well, so I was forced into auditioning for the very first play I ever did, which was in high school. I wasn't looking to do a play, but they were casting a play, and no boys, and every boy in the school was like me, like, fuck that shit, that's not for me, not for fucking me, I'm a fucking real dude, you know. And I got forced into auditioning for the play, and they didn't end up being able to force a lot of guys, because it was a tough school, so you know, I was one of the few guys that they ended up forcing to come to these auditions, which means I had to get like a leading role. And when I started rehearsing, I realized I was one of the least fucked up people in the group. Like, this was, theater people were really, really wired, like neurotic, man. And I said, this could be my calling. You know, or like, I'm not the most fucked up person. This is the first time I've ever been in a group of people, like, you know, I hope you guys didn't bring your kids here. Oh, I'm sorry, darling. But you're gonna have to learn it somewhere. It may as well be Uncle Ron, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it is nice. And you're never gonna get any better than this kid. What was the question?
Well, it was about, you know, what you learned from being live on stage.
So I learned that this was my community, number one. This was like where I kind of seemed to fit in. And then we get to performance time. And you get up on stage and do this stuff that you've been rehearsing in kind of a vacuum for 3 or 4 weeks. And all of a sudden there's 2,000 people in the room, and you feel them, and they feel you, and you have this kind of like, I'm performing, and you're listening and rapid. So ladies and gentlemen, the beautiful, the talented. So this feeling of performing in front of 2,000 people, and you can feel you have their attention, and you can feel that you're kind of conducting their night. You know, you can make them laugh if you want to, you can make them quiet if you want to, you know that they're listening. It's like an aphrodisiac. I mean, it's really a powerful, powerful drug-like feeling that you want more of. And so after my first play, I just couldn't wait to do my second and my third and my fourth, and I just did that all through the rest of high school, college, grad school, all the way up to this day.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ryan Hurst to the stage as well. And Ryan, your mom was an acting coach. Your father was an actor, actually part of Dukes of Hazzard, which I thought was kind of cool. Yeah. Cletus and Dukes of Hazzard. I really like that. You know, watch that growing up. So, what did you take from the acting craft, learning from your family, that you were able to use early in your career?
You know, it's a beautiful, amazing profession, you know, that we get to be able to continue doing this. But it's exploring the human condition, right? You know, it's bringing, I believe that humans, we all sort of learn through stories, whether they're stories we tell ourselves or stories that are told to us. And I've always taken the role of being an actor as like sort of a sacred duty. You know, I mean, some of it's fun and some of it's not, but you're taking something from a page from like 3 dimensions and you're bringing it into the 4th dimension of actually bringing something to life, and the ability to explore those sort of like caverns of your own mind, and also just what it is to be you know, a soul in a human on this planet. I've always sort of like, that was something that was sort of just not, it was sort of indirectly taught to me by my mother and my father since I was very, very young. And my mother's a fantastic teacher. But that's pretty much what they gave me. Yeah.
And I thought someone was going to start clapping for you. I mean, it's perfect. See, you know, that's why you two are actors, and I'm just slop up here, asking questions. So, any questions from the audience? Just a few. I will take this guy right here in the back, right here, shirt right here.
My question is for Ron. Is Hellboy 3 still possible or no?
That would be a no, that mic, so.
In case you didn't hear me, no.
Next question. The guy in the back right there, right there.
So I loved Opie and I hated Clay.
Oh.
How did it feel?
I felt just the opposite.
How did it feel? Or how was it getting into a character that you know somebody's probably not going to like, as opposed to getting into a character that you know that everybody's going to love? Is there something different you do? No one?
How do you prepare for a role? I guess is a good.
I was actually scared to play Clay. And I don't usually get scared. I usually only play characters that I'm supposed to play. When I got into when it became possible for me to consider playing Clay, it wasn't up to me. It was up to the network, and they were spending a lot of money and blah blah blah. But it was the first character that somebody wanted me to play that I didn't understand, or I didn't understand how he was wired. His value system was very, very jarring to me. The way he moved through the world was very jarring to me. And I played a lot of characters under 4 hours of makeup. This required no makeup, but it required a kind of a transformation that made me feel uncomfortable and maybe like, I don't know if I can really do this effectively. So I approached Clay with a lot of trepidation and a lot of wonder, and a lot of humility, because I really, he was somebody that was very far afield from what I had in my wiring.
For me, I didn't know that Opie was going to be such a beloved character. It was something that sort of evolved through the writing and also just through investigating the character so much. He was just sort of a best friend character at the very beginning. But then, as time went on, I sort of tried to infuse an amount of pathos into the character that just seemed to stick with people. And I was very, very happy to do that. But in terms of doing a loved character or a disliked character, from our perspective, for the most part, is you go into it and it's an exploration. So it's not like you have these expectations of this is what I'm going to do, and I hope that it turns out this way.
I just want to add one thing. I played a lot of bad guys, so it's not about having a problem playing somebody who's bad or evil, but I have to kind of understand them and what makes them that way, and find a way in my own kind of frame of reference that I can plug into that kind of badness. I just couldn't. That's how distant the Clay's thinking was to my own, because I really didn't know whether I was the right guy for it, really, and frankly. So it was awkward.
Was he based on someone that Kurt met?
Huh?
Is he based on somebody that Kurt had met?
No, but he was definitely somebody that, we were all doing Hamlet, So in Hamlet, you got the young prince whose father had just been recently murdered, and then the uncle is now married to the mother, and now he becomes the king, and he kind of realized, okay, the uncle was the guy who off the father and shit. So I was the uncle, and so it was loosely based on that prototype. But the rest of the skin and bones and shit that Kurt put on the guy was all his invention, and he was weird. I mean, he was very unique.
You know, Ryan, one thing I was reading about you is how much you want roles that are challenging to you. Talk a little bit about that. You know, what is in you that says, hey, I really want a really tough role?
I don't know. I'm just like a masochist, I guess. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, if somebody else can do the role, they should probably do it. If it's you know, if it's something strange or it's something sort of off the beaten path, that's where I sort of feel like I glow the most. You know, is my sort of creative, you know, hackles go up a little bit when somebody, you know, when the writers kind of go, you know, that they're not pigeonholing your character, but they sort of leave it open, and they kind of go like, well, I don't know, like what do you want to do? And then they go, let me show you. You know, I did that, you know, also on like Bates Motel. Is you know, they presented this character that was just sort of like one-dimensional at the beginning, and I turned it down, and then they came back and they said, well, what would you like to do? And I said, well, let me think about it. And then I came back to them, you know, and sort of being a bit of a cinephile myself, you know, I said, well, if you're doing Hitchcock and kind of like the way that you guys are traversing the show is, Hitchcock was kind of a master at ambiguity. You know, is that he could take that even his protagonists, you didn't necessarily love them or hate them. And that's a really interesting, creative place to be. And he did it so beautifully, and I was like, you haven't, you know, really explored a character like that on this show yet. I said, I'd like to be able to present a guy that you don't know whether to feel sorry for him, to be scared of him, to laugh at him. You know, if that you were in an elevator with this guy, you would just feel uneasy because you didn't know how you were supposed to feel. And they were like, great, how do we write that? And I said, well, let me write some stuff myself. And so I put together a couple little monologues and that they used part of it in a couple of the episodes. And then I dressed, and then I said, like, leave me alone with the wardrobe lady and for 45 minutes. And I put together this kind of like wild getup and then presented it, and they were like, oh, okay. So then we sort of like, you know, over the course of those couple seasons, we found an accord and did something that was really sort of unique. But it's kind of like the way that I approach the entire process a lot of the time. Is like, I remember once hearing, you know, I mean, everybody has a different process about how they approach a character. And like two of my favorites that are, you know, I mean, there's the sort of traditional way, which is like Stanislavski's like creating a character and sort of doing homework and breaking down a character and learning their motivation and their history and all of that. But there's also much more creative ways of playing about it also. Which is like, and two of my favorites are actually Matthew McConaughey and then Johnny Depp. It's like Matthew McConaughey does this nice little process where he'll get a script like way ahead of time and he'll read it when he's in different emotional states. So he in his personal life is like really angry. He'll read the script, the whole script, and he'll find something. And then when he's sad, he'll read it again. And then when he's happy, he'll read it again. So that I thought that was really sort of an open way of approaching the character. And the one note I like the most is, you know, Johnny Depp is, he approaches characters like for inspiration, sort of completely wide open. So that it doesn't necessarily have to be like him doing Keith Richards like he did for Jack Sparrow, but he was like, it could be a song, it could be a smell, it could be a painting, it could be a song. It's like anything that sort of is something that can feed his choices for those creative choices for that character. He kind of like puts together a treasure box of like, this is what feels like the character. So I try to, you know, those are two things that have been helpful in my career, so those two processes.
Hey, Ron, do you have a certain process when you get a script or you get a role?
Well, he was talking about reading the script in different moods. I just use drugs. Like, you know, sometimes.
Good ones or bad ones?
No, man. Sometimes, you know, like it's ecstasy. You know, and I'll drop a few mushrooms. And shit, read the script again. I'll just smoke a bone or two. You know.
Any other questions from the
By the
audience?
way, anybody here? Never mind.
We'll do the
But
right
I packed light, so you know.
We'll see you afterwards or up on the deck up there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I want to say I've never loved and hated a character so much, and I've never cried so much off the character and their events. But my husband is begging me through Instagram Live to ask you a question right now. Would you two ever be interested in doing a prequel to the show?
No.
I wouldn't mind. You know, I've sort of toyed around with the idea of if they ever did a prequel, it'd be kind of fun for me to play Piney. I kind of would like to play a young Piney. I thought that might be fun.
I mean, logistically, by definition, prequel means meeting these guys before you met them the last time. I'm 72 now, so it's gonna be like, you know, watching Robert De Niro and The Irishman act like he's 22. You know?
Wait, let me put my teeth in before I bite you.
I mean, Ron, they can always find, you know, Quest for Fire on, you know, VHS tape and watch you when you were younger.
You know, the thing of it is that I'm one of these guys that just like, I mean, I'll do anything for money. There's no question about that. But there's this other part of me that's like, why would I want to go back and have a look at something that I spent so much time enjoying and exploring, and we squeezed every bit of juice out of. Why would I ever want to go? There's so many new opportunities and so many new ways to express yourself as an artist, you know, that well, just, you know, it's available. You can watch it on Netflix, on Hulu, all you like. You know? Just leave me alone, okay?
For me, like just as a viewer and a fan of the show, I would just, for whatever reason, I would do the prequel for one moment. I just think that would be fun as a viewer to watch, you know, me playing Piney, holding like a baby Opie. I think that would be a nice little meta tip of the hat. Like this.
Kurt, are you listening? Kurt.
So one of us is in, but you guys got to figure out which one.
Well, let's give a hand for our two guests up here. They are on the second level. Feel free to get a picture, get an autograph, talk to them up there as well. I want to thank you for coming out to StocktonCon. We got a couple panels left for this afternoon, along with the costume contest later today. So thank you so much for coming out.